Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? Hashtag Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayome Saleh, and today we're happy to have Marianne Duke Okon back. Hello, this is Amphara lady.
This is how I'm going to be greeting.
She's having a bit of voice issues.
A little bit under the weather.
Under the weather.
It's okay.
It's okay.
We know you're not used to
We'll
all
help
of
you
that.
talk today on your behalf.
Well, yeah, you just sit pretty.
Just sit quietly and pretty. How are you, Mercy?
Very well, thank you for asking.
How did your weekend go?
Very restful, managing and surviving Nigeria every minute and every second, trying not to get crazy.
I'm buying bread for 1.9.
Hey.
To be very honest, I'm not, I don't really like bread like that. So, and because of the weight stuff, so when you look at your age, you have to be very careful with the things that you eat. So, I don't really patronize that, but it's very difficult to feed these days. So food is expensive. But in all of that, we still be chopping. I'll be chopping.
All right. So if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, I cannot stop saying it. You have to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we have very interesting content there that you're not going to see on TV. So go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we always do on Mondays, right? Tonight, in partnership with Enough is Enough, we'll have a quick chat with Ufoma to discuss local government autonomy. Of course, we cannot avoid that conversation and the path to grassroots democracy. And she's joined us live via Zoom. Hi, Ufoma.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening. How are you? All right, so quickly, first of all, were you excited when you heard the news about the Supreme Court's judgment on local government autonomy? Or were you part of the people that were 50-50? Or you were outright, no, this is not happening? Which side of the divide were you?
Well, I think my initial reaction was excitement. Then it went into 50-50. It went into 50-50, feeling like, okay, this is good. But then upon looking at other things, when you talk about our constitutional provisions, which I guess something that we'll get into, but when you see that our constitution provides that local governments funds should be allocated through the state's joint local government accounts, and so the Supreme Court judgment bypassing that to saying, oh, they should be paid directly. It now gives you a case of, okay, are we bending the Constitution? How about we look at the holistic constitutional review process, which is just like a conversation that we were having internally on the judgment. So yes, I think personally, I'm 50-50 about the judgment.
All right. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, especially as the conversations are unfolding, right, on all the the gray areas within this new development, right? It then gives you cause for concern. But I mean, Enough is Enough has put out something that they will release tomorrow that speaks to constitutional compliance, need for comprehensive reforms, transparency and accountability, democratic governance, and balanced federalism, right? If you want to quickly summarize what this communique is about, how would you do that?
I think it's just us saying that beyond the headlines, let's look into the documents that really speaks to how we do governance in Nigeria. So in terms of constitutional compliance, that speaks to what I said about Section 162, subsection 6 of the 1999 Constitution as amendment, right? And so when the Supreme Court judgment goes against that, he then begs to say, raise some kind of legal and operational concerns. I think for us, we are just saying, how about we do a more holistic, a comprehensive reform, whereby we amend relevant sections of the Constitution if we truly want to empower the LGAs. And then we reassess what the financial relationship among the three tiers of government looks like. I feel if we do that, thank you. I think if we do that, we then begin to have a more legalistic conversation, right? As opposed to, doing backdoor, well, in quotes, backdoor reviews. Also, when we start to talk about LG accountability and transparency, how about including measures to enhance citizens' participation at local government budget process? So now there's allocation to them. How about their budgeting process? How can we get citizens more involved? And I think it speaks to one of our ongoing projects, my LGA. It's currently running in about 6 states: Yobe, Nasarawa, Ondo, Ebonyi, Abia, and Anambra states, whereby we are strengthening the ties between local government and citizens, residents in those local governments, so that they can be more involved in the LG democratic process.
So quickly, one final question.
All right, what are your thoughts? Do you think that the Supreme Court's judgment is going to become anything when we talk about the financial autonomy, of our local government, especially when we look at Section 197 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and the fact that you have a lot of legal practitioners saying, hey, until we get to that point where we allow local government chairmen to be democratically elected. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this is going to make any sense?
I think that right now our advocacy effort should also be to state governments, because they are constitutionally required to run regular, free and fair elections in their states. And until the local government chairmen are democratically elected, they can looking for good governance, accountability and transparency at that level is a far cry. So I think the onus on us now as citizens is to go and look at what our constitutional requirements are, and then begin to engage our governors and engage the machinery of government across, especially at the state level, to conduct elections and go out to vote. Local government elections are also important. So
say
go out
to you
vote,
that Ufoma
and choose a representative.
Okay, Ufoma, I was just going to say to you that Delta State just did a local government election. The turnout was very poor.
Yes.
Right? So in all this advocacy, how can we really get people to understand the importance of local government? Because it's like we're just speaking and it's really not sinking in, right? In 1 second, how do you think we can get this done? Because people need to be involved.
Yeah, I think we need to continue talking about it, and then maybe move a bit offline as well, and put in practical fiscal structures to get people involved at that level of democratic engagement.
All right. Thank you so much, Ufoma. Thank you so much. All right. So our topic tonight will focus on the impact of Wole Soyinka on Nigeria's history, referencing the new movie, The Man Died, a biopic of Wole Soyinka. And to this regard, here's what we found as today's quote. "The man dies in all who keeps silent in the face of tyranny." That was from Professor Wole Soyinka himself. Right? To join us to have this conversation tonight will be our friend of the house and a veteran in the industry, Femi Odugbemi. He's a Nigerian writer and a filmmaker. And when we open our phone lines, we really love to hear your thoughts, on this. And of course, first we'll go on a break. When we come back from that break, to see what we found in today's news. Stay with us. All right, international holiday today is dedicated to World Skills Day, right? And the United Nations headquarters in New York City and elsewhere host events to encourage youth to talk about the importance of skills training. World Skills Day encourages global dialogue and collaboration to ensure that young people around the world, including those in Nigeria, have access to the resources and opportunity they need to develop their skills and contribute to their communities and economies. Now, in Nigeria, World Youth Skill Day is particularly significant due to the country's large and growing youth population. Examples of initiative in Nigeria include the National Youth Service Corps Skills Acquisition Program, Youth Employment Program, Educational Reform, and so on. So yeah, happy World Youth Skills Day. This way.
But I mean,
So,
this what you're doing is a skill.
I just had a conversation with my sons this evening, and I was telling them, Uncle, as we did, perhaps we have to strategize because right now the world is going global, and it's a lot of tech, what's it called, skills that is needed now.
Yes.
So I am hoping that our NYSC move beyond the traditional kinds of skill, and even across all 36 states, let's start having tech innovations.
I'm
because
giving you
guess
bombastic
what?
side eye.
I know, and I'm not seeing your bombastic side eye, because guess what? The only way we can come out of this economic hardship that we're doing is if we're able to upskill.
Yeah.
And for you to upskill, right now, technology is needed. And once you upskill with technology, you are guaranteed that, in fact, you'll not be fighting for this minimum wage that they're asking for.
Nobody's looking for white-collar jobs anymore.
We're strategic.
Yeah,
very strategic. Let me speak the right English.
And it just brings me, back to the content for the week that, we're literally talking about the fact that remote economy is actually the new norm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's important. Now, this is me just saying, on the other hand, that businesses that have no, if you're not rendering essential services, it is important that you consider the remote culture, the remote work culture. The remote economy is the new norm right now for businesses in Africa, especially if you look at, the cost of running business and what have you. So, hey, I think that everyone should begin to think that way. Absolutely. And technology comes in there.
My darling, we're there. We're following them. Yeah. All right, let me come to you, Marianne.
Businesses have to, I was talking with Badibo Viber Roads this evening, and he said something about building hubs around businesses now so that I don't have to come from Ikorodu to work in VI. So I can have an Ikorodu office, or I take my business, if it's growing enough here on the island, I start a new one in Ikorodu and build a hub around it where people can have tiny living apartments that are also low cost. That way, they don't even have to come into the office. They have data. It's technology. But are we thinking that far?
Take your what's in the news quickly.
Well, my what's in the news is a bit gloomy because consumer spending is down as Nigerians remain gloomy on the economy. And this is from the Vanguard newspaper. Apparently, the increasing weight of unfavorable economic condition owing to the weakening purchasing power has moved Nigerians into a state of hopelessness over the direction of the economy. In fact, also we hear that the widespread cut in spending by Nigerians in adjustment to the unfavorable economic conditions has triggered a decline in the value of electronic payment transactions. Volume and value of e-payment transactions has sustained upward trend over the years since the launch of this cashless economy by the CBN. But the findings from the Vanguard newspaper shows that the value of e-transactions fell month on month by 5.7% in June, representing a second month-on-month decline in 3 months. All this English is to say that we're poor. The average Nigerian cannot. The average, I don't know if you have seen it. People are beginning to eat from the dustbin.
No.
In Lagos, yes, it's happening. They're going to the fast food places to eat from the dustbin. And the truth is that, how much is bread? I started by saying that, how much is bread? The beans that we used to say it was a poor man's food, you can't even afford it. How much is Gary? And depending on the number of children you have or the number of mouths you have to feed, it might just be 001.
As well. Yeah. We'll have to talk about this. I think we're having a conversation around it again on Wednesday. Yeah. But we had a conversation on it on Tuesday. Go ahead, Mercy, quickly.
That's actually making me very emotional, but, I have to put my acts together and get this one, out of the way. So I came across the news about a social media movement that has actually gained a lot of traction through the hashtag Anita Must Go and hashtag Uganda Parliament Exhibition. And I'm sure when you heard the Anita, I'm sure you're thinking about Davido. No, we're not talking about Davido. This movement in Uganda targets a speaker. So Anita Among is a speaker, is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, or lawmaker, if you like to say. So the movement that is on Twitter is targeted around Speaker Anita Among, who's under intense scrutiny and faces widespread calls for resignation due to numerous allegations of corruption and misuse of public funds. Her situation became very worse after the United Kingdom and the United States imposed sanctions on her for corruption, including travel bans and asset freezes, marking a significant diplomatic stance against corruption in Uganda. Now, quick, I'll just move away from this. First of all, I am very proud about what's happening in Africa. I feel like there's a revolution that's going on. It might not actually gain the traction, yield the exact result that we want, but I'm proud that Africans are beginning to speak up and waking up, to looking at the call.
I hear she's resigned.
Yes, and so this call, it speaks to the issue of accountability, governance, the fact that this movement underscores the demand that there's need for transparency. People are already tired of the nonsense that's going on.
Burning across Africa. I hope it burns down to the junction of Nigeria.
It is
the big brother of Africa.
So I thought this story was important to me because Nami don't they talk this Olu matter. We are coming for you guys. Creating more states won't solve Southeast problem, and this was from the senior advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba. He has faulted the agitation of creating new states, and he has said it. He's insisting that this cannot solve the problem that they have in the region. Rather, they should go back to the regional government, right? They should go back to the constitution, amend the constitution, and put together a completely new one that would return Nigeria back to regional government. I just thought to mention that. So let them be hearing it.
Sounds like a warning.
I say, we're complaining of over bloated system. You can't pay minimum wage. You are not saying you want to create. Do you know what a new state, what it will add to
all the ones that we have?
Line?
How viable
productive
are
are
they?
they? We'll take a break. When we come back from that break, let's discuss Professor Wole Soyinka. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future, yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
If you took that to another level, you understand that if you're driving on the streets of Lagos, for instance, if you, as a private person, drives on BRT lane, the police will catch you. But if the bus driver, the Danfo driver, enters the same lane, they'll probably wave at each other because the bus driver had purchased the license for impunity when he paid his dues in the morning. So you are not dealing with a society that is governed by law. The first time I was slapped by a policeman, I was 16 years old. I wasn't doing anything wrong. There was a riot going on, student protest at Oscars in Ife. There was a problem at Unifair in those days, and there was a riot. And I was going from my hall of residence, heading to the school campus to go and read. I didn't realize that there had been a resurgence of the protest and police were chasing students around, cops and robbers. So me, I was coming out of my hall of residence, heading to the school to go and read, and I ran into a policeman. And, it was like in a cul-de-sac, we ran into each other, and he slapped me. He slapped me so hard, my books fell down. And the guy was just looking at me with his hand on his waistline. And in that moment, he just... In fact, the way I wrote about it, when I eventually wrote about it years ago, I said I received sense. He slapped me so hard I received sense.
Are you saying that they are contributing to the problem of overpricing within the Nigerian environment? In the industry at large?
I'll come this way, that a lot of these challenges being experienced also, we can't take out the place of the agents away from it. Because the higher the price, the higher their commission. In some cases, there are landlords that have said, oh, this house, I'm taking 5 million naira per annum from it, for instance. And the agent is saying,
I can get it for 7 million for you.
7. It's now, your friends are taking, all around, your neighbors are taking 10 million, 8 million. And the landlord say, oh, anyway, if you can get me just 5 million, I am okay. If you get anything other than that, it's yours. So some seem to mark it up. And if the regulations we have, if we actually enforce it, then those can be caught. Now, we won't take out the fact that these things happen, and some of them may be as a result of probably title. Title makes this pricing to go up. Like you see a place where he has probably a certificate of occupancy, and I mean, whether individual or global certificate of occupancy that covers an entire state, and the next one doesn't have. I mean, so to that extent, so
because
it
this
commands
is a safer
value.
property.
It's safer.
Thanks for staying with us. Now tonight, we're going to have a conversation about a film which is not just a tribute, but a vivid portrayal of a man whose voice has echoed through the corridors of power. He has challenged injustices and inspired generation from his early days as a fearless student activist to his profound contributions as a playwright, scholar, and Nobel laureate. Wole Soyinka's story is one of courage, conviction, and unyielding hope. So we'll take a quick look at this video, then we'll be right back.
Was the last time you saw Ajuku?
The group that I represent, all we want for you to do is to call a halt to the fire.
We will not allow him to destabilize our nation.
Yes, sir.
The regime wants him silenced with nothing traced to us.
But that will require placing a hold on secession.
Yes.
And that is the sticky point, Wole.
The Igbos were nothing but an excuse for the military and the mafia to not do the actual work of nation building. And that, my friend, is carrying out the aims of January 15.
You should be in class teaching. Why are you always disturbing the peace of the land? The last time you held up a radio station with a gun.
Stop that.
Now you are in bed with Ojukwu. Why?
I think we need a group of new entrants into this war.
Well, you know, it's amazing. It's a great project to have worked on. I'm very happy to have worked on it.
And I play Ojukwu in the film.
Nobody can tell our stories better than ourselves.
The movie, I think, will show me what he was in his younger days. And that's what I'm really looking forward to see.
From this movie, to start with, you know who it's about. It's about a living legend and sacrifices are made.
The visionary behind this project, the producer and the director, share their insights on bringing this biopic to fruition.
So the choice in the casting was important because we were looking, where do we find people to match? In fact, it was Professor Soyinka himself who picked Wole Ojo.
This film is about a profile in courage. It's about understanding the office of citizen and embracing with our full chest.
I think the film's going to be spectacular. I expect to hear Wole.
As The Man Died makes its mark, coming after the release of the movie Funmilayo Ransom Kuti George, the celebration of Wole Soyinka's life continues to inspire and resonate with audiences worldwide.
Really? Oh, okay. So joining us to discuss this remarkable film is the visionary filmmaker and producer of The Man Died. His work has always been at the forefront of Nigerian cinema, and his latest project promises to be a powerful reflection on Wole Soyinka's monumental influence on our nation's history, in person of my big uncle, Femi Odugbemi, and he's here live with us in studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So you're trying to correct us that it's not a biopic?
No, it's
Okay.
not. It's not a biopic, and I say that so that we manage expectation. It's about a period in Nigeria's history, Nigeria's political history. It's pre-Civil War, and it flies right through. He was 2 years in detention for trying to stop the war. The things that he did in the period were strictly illegal, but from a humanistic perspective, he was trying to stop people being killed because he felt that the disagreement between the federal government and Biafra was about addressing injustice. And for me, it's important to look at his actions within the period and not just about his person. And I think that's really what this is about.
So I'm really excited about what you just said, because that's the claw. If we bring it back home to what is happening today and the youth, I don't think Professor Wole Soyinka is in a very good space with the young people right now, because they feel like he's compromised. They feel like a lot of things that he stood for, how he fought, the activism, fighting for human rights and all of that, they feel like he's been bought over, right? So I'm happy you're saying that we're not focusing on his life. We're focusing on something very significant that he did. And that was why when I was trying to couch the topic, I didn't even know what to couch it as. I said, so maybe it will help people to understand how much impact, Professor Wole Soyinka had because he's still alive, on Nigeria's history. History is not particularly one of our favorite subjects in this country. I don't think I know a lot of Nigeria's history, even as an adult, and now talk about the young people that are coming, right? So why was it important for this story to be told?
I think it was incredibly misunderstood, and that showed in the last elections and the way people perceived where he stood. The first thing that's clear is that democracy means that you not only have your right to choose, you also have the responsibility to respect the other person's rights, to disagree with you. And I think that's really one of the first things that needs to be said with regard to how the youth may feel or not feel. I feel, is misunderstood, which to me comes from the fact that because we've been so distanced from our history, many people do not know how much he has had skin in the game. He has been consistent. There's only one thing that I think he is really, truly passionate about, and that's justice. That's human rights. That's political equity. And I think in this film, you see that he was not a Nobel Prize winner when he was fighting for the Biafran side. He was not. He was just a lecturer. And for me, everything that he ever was has remained consistent through NADECO, through the demonstrations about subsidy, through on to, fighting the military governments. At no point has any of these fights been risk-free. Abacha tried to kill him. And so it's very difficult to imagine that someone of that resilience, of that determination, could then be bought by someone who he actually mentored. I think people forget that President Tinubu was basically an advisor to Moshood Abiola when Moshood Abiola actually needed Wole Soyinka. And as things go, you have to ask yourself, what is it that anyone wants to give Wole Soyinka? If there was anything, he certainly wouldn't be naming something after him. It certainly wouldn't be money. And I think this film is about saying to you, if someone will go in solitary confinement, and he was given opportunity many times, to recant and get out. And he said no. And he was on a hunger strike for a majority of that period of time and stayed. He was to be made a minister if he would just recant. And he said no. Abacha did the same, offered him a heck of a lot of stuff. And for me, it's important that we do not practice democracy by saying anyone who does not agree with us has been bought. I think it's a misunderstanding of a fundamental of democracy that you respect my choice as much as I allow yours. And if he made a different choice from that which we, and it's very strange because he didn't even make a choice at all. All he said is he was not supporting who perhaps many of us wanted.
The youth.
At no point did he declare
who he was supporting.
If he supported anyone. And for me, the respect that he deserved could not have been denied him on the, you can't spend 40 years pursuing a truth. And then all of that is then diminished in an election cycle.
So I don't think that, the issue here is about the fact that he's supported, he chose not to support this or not to support that, and he's not been very open about where he's standing. But I think that the concern here is about what we saw. For someone like me, I mean, I grew up reading stories and reading the fact that, he's a legend, and seeing his works and reading some of his books like The Lion of Judah, right? So the concern here amongst a lot of people is the fact that he's not very vocal as he was. He's not, very active. The same energy he had at that time is not, at this point in time. No, I'm
glad you're saying that.
So this is actually the perception, and he's not the only one on the table, because you have a lot of influential persons who are being called up. Recently, you had the likes of a very senior pastor, man of God in Lagos, in Nigeria, across board, Pastor Paula Defarasin, who's been called up for saying, why is he speaking about the issues in the United States of America? When did he speak to the election issues or to the fact that people were killed in Nigeria? So I think that the issue here is, or what people are saying is that he's not been very involved and active as he was at the time. We're not seeing him being
vocal. Are we not embarrassed to say that? Are we not embarrassed to be asking a 90-year-old to lead resistance? Where is our own agency? Who he is
when he was young?
Who is Wole Soyinka 40 years ago, and why are we asking him to tell us how to resist, to join us? Because that's what we chose. I think it's more an indictment of us. And for me, I don't even want to have that conversation, because I never met my grandfather. But I would never definitely have asked my grandfather to go lead a resistance at 80, not to talk of 85, not to talk of 90. Having said that, I want to flip you back to the film and to the themes of the film, and to the themes of courage, the themes of clarity that he had at that age, and say that if there is anything I hope the film does for us, it's give us a glimpse of history, and that there was a time in this country when young people did not have the luxury of sitting behind their keyboards, and they had to be on the streets, they had to face the police, they had to be jailed. And we still have many of those today, because look, I'll be honest with you, an activist like, say, Dele Farotimi was on the streets during the time of Nadeko. And for people like him, I give a huge world of respect, because it's a totally different game to sit down in the comfort and safety of your home and call out other people, not to talk of a 90-year-old. But I think in this film, what you see is the courage of resistance, the standing up for injustice, whether it was ethnocentric or not. And for me, what I think this film does is call out the fact that in 1966, we were dealing with ethnic imbalances, people recognize themselves as a certain tribe before they recognized Nigerians. We were dealing with fundamental rights that were being, overrun. We were dealing with poor governance, poor leadership. And I hope what this film really represents and calls out is that in 2024, we're still dealing with exactly the same issues. So among those who are calling out others, where are our leadership? Who's organizing who? Why are we not using the Constitution, flawed as it may be, to actually activate a movement? I feel strongly that our young people have capacity, amazing capacity. We have creativity, amazing creativity. That's why you could have an Hollywood. That's why you could have the kind of industry we have in the creative industries. But that's also why we could have an NSAS. And if you look at the organization of that, that was an issue that I think our youth felt like they had skin in the game. So I'm hoping that beyond talking, beyond arguments and debates, beyond ethnocentrism, beyond calling, people out, we actually organize politically. Because if we are actually serious, we wouldn't need those guys. We wouldn't need anyone from the past to help us. We have a different country. That's very clear.
It's different from this time.
It's very different. We're ethnocentric because it's comfortable. But it's not affordable because many of us are marrying across ethnic lines. And if there's anything that is also clear, is that economically, we're invested everywhere.
Absolutely.
The biggest markets in Kano don't belong to Hausas. the biggest, if you go to Idi Araba, you would understand that you're actually in an enclave. And for me, those things are beautiful because essentially they give our young people a broad education and a capacity for tolerance that I think those of us who are educated, perhaps too educated, are unable to fathom or embrace. And I think it's important that, we see this film from that lens.
Yes. Okay. You know what? We'll take a very short breaker. When we come back, I know Marianne is itching to ask a question. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future,
yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having a conversation around the impact of Wole Soyinka on Nigeria's history. And we have with us Femi Odugbemi. Of course, we're referencing the new movie. I'm really looking forward to watching the movie. The Man Died, all right? So he says it's not a biopic. It's just a part in his life an event in his life. Yes, let me call it that way. So now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-8663. You can also call in if you want to. The number is 07025 0077
for freedom and justice. The people who are today fighting him that he didn't speak about this, he's not pushing he's supporting this and that, probably don't have an idea that he was fighting for them back in the day. For example, he was fighting against the injustices against the people in Biafra. Yeah. Yes, of course, they were legitimately asking for secession, which, naturally you can ask for it, but they were being strong-armed. Let's talk about the fact that today we don't necessarily have a reading culture. And even if we do, people are not reading that deep in between the lines. How will this movie help us to maybe get back to that reading culture? Understand that it's not about Twitter. Sometimes knowledge is inside a book. It's in between the lines, and we need to go back to that because that's where the knowledge lies, and witty conversations.
Well, I always answer when people say the generation we are in does not like to read. I disagree vehemently because they're reading all day long. They are constantly reading from their laptop, from their devices, from their phone. They're constantly reading. It's what they choose to read. And I think that's, for me, it is important that we also recognize that the written word is not the sole platform for transmitting knowledge anymore. You have to have a story. You have to have imagery. You have to embed, the essence of your narrative in the mind. People need to be entertained while being educated. And so for me, it's not about people reading more. It's about those who have something to say, recognizing where the meeting point is. And if you look at social media, there's a lot of folks who create stuff constantly. So it's not that it's not that they're not thinking or that they don't have ideas. The question is, have they given up? Do they have agency? Unless you have agency, and I keep using the phrase skin in the game, unless you have agency and you embrace your capacity as a creative to be influential in changing things and actually altering reality. And I think that's what I feel most vital in terms of where our creative industry needs to go. Our creative auteurs, our writers, our actors and producers need to understand something called imagination engineering, which is forward, almost foreshadowing a future day different
from what our
past.
reality,
So preempting it.
It's actually showcasing it. And I make this example. When I was in college, there was a black guy who ran for president. His name was Jesse Jackson. And he was very intense, and all black people followed him, but it was only black people that followed him because white people could not imagine a black person in the Oval Office. Fast forward to Obama's time. Just right before then, there was a whole series on television, incredibly successful, with a strong black president who spoke well, who carried himself with dignity, who had a good family. They used that series to sort of upend every single fear about a black president. And it made it possible in the subconscious
for it to happen in the reality.
That's subliminal marketing.
For them to happen.
Yes.
But that came because there were storytellers who understood their agency.
It's good that you brought your leg out. Because you see, I was
Do we
coming
have
to that
those-
industry.
do we have those
Because
futuristic
I was just going to say to you
producers
that
today?
recently, Bolanle Austin Peters released Fumilayo Ransom Kuti. We are not seeing that the numbers did so well. You understand? I'm also worried for this film, right? Nigerians right now, and producers will tell you, because now your industry, it's good that you brought out your leg. They will tell you that we don't want to watch these kinds of movies. What we want to do is feel-good movies. We want to do that. And I keep on arguing this, that you guys are complaining about Nigeria. And for you to change Nigeria, it's beyond books, it's beyond, you have to use everything possible, including cartoons, different things, because what the US they've done, I mean, they did a movie on a what's it called, a disease outbreak. Shortly after we saw COVID. There are so many things that they've told us in movies that we're seeing happening in reality. So how can we flip that script in Nigeria? How can we start to get more investors in the movie industry, look beyond just feel-good things, and actually give us a possibility of a better future as as Nigerians?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think when we use the broad stroke to paint Nollywood, we're being unfair.
Right.
And let me tell you why. I have been the head of jury of MVCA 7 times or 8 times out of 10. And I see a lot of films from Nigeria, and I see a lot of films from the rest of Africa. And I have to say, we did not get here by accident. We got here because we put our investments on the table. We are in the process of learning not just to make films, but to make significant films. It's a journey. When we compare ourselves to Hollywood, we're being disingenuous. Hollywood is 100 years old. We're barely 30. So there are things that we will keep correcting as we go. 10 years ago, Bolanle was doing stage plays.
Yeah.
And Bolanle was a damn good director, always has been. She didn't just become. But she realized there was a gap here where we could make films that matter. And she's done that, both with her film Man of God.
Man of God, yes. And
or every single film
yes.
that BAP, I'm a big fan of hers, by the way. Yeah. So please, if you hear me, understand. I'm a big fan of hers because there is an element in her films that comes from research. People think that Bolanle's films are great because of money. No, they are great because of research, because of attention to detail. And you can't really say that came from nowhere. She's a lawyer. She's worked with the United Nations. She's, as we bring those kind of people into our industry, their works will ask questions. And she's done stuff on Fela on the stage. She could have made it a film. But she's not alone. There are quite a lot of people doing amazing work. Mildred Oko always does amazing work. Kunle
Afolayan as well.
October 1st is one of my all-time
favorite
amazing films. The very old national anthem that he told us in October 1
that's what we are using
is
now.
what we have gone back to. But there's been many intelligent, erudite filmmakers. Zigzulu Okafor has been doing a lot of work. Mahmoud Ali Balogun. I do think that our numbers are our problem. When you talk about Nigeria, you're talking 200 million people.
200 plus million.
Be conservative, 200 million. If just 1% of us are doing something, that's a huge number. It's different if we are 30 million and the same 1%. So if you look at the numbers of people in Nollywood, number one, you've got to be grateful that that number of people have jobs, that number of people are occupied, that number of people are in a process of growth creatively.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that films like The Man Died, Fumilayo, all the other films that I think are significant in terms of insight, I'm hoping that they become models that at some point every filmmaker will try to make work that's not only commercially successful, but impactful and somewhat significant.
So what's the plan for The Man Died? What's the strategy, the marketing plan? Because I feel like this movie has to be everywhere for us to be able to then elicit the lessons properly. Because you see, prior to this film, I'm sure a lot of people will think that Professor Wole Soyinka is a bigot. Like he yeah. I mean, that's the narrative that has been flying around, especially around the 2023 general elections, is anti-Igbo and all of that. But you now hear that there was a time in his life where he was side by side fighting with Ojukwu. Do you understand? It changes the game. It changes the narrative. So what is the strategy to ensuring that this film goes everywhere? What's the strategy?
Well, for starters, it's an impact film. So we're looking for eyeballs, a lot of eyeballs, not just money.
Money, thank you.
I'm not interested in, big cinemas. I'm interested in those cinemas being full. I'm interested in taking the film to schools. I'm interested in traveling across the world with it. I'm interested in having companies have screening parties. I'm interested in people having conversations after the film, just so that we all can underscore why the film. The film is not, like I told you, it's not about Wole Soyinka as a person. It's about his principles. Yeah. It's about justice. It's about human rights. It's about how we elevate all of that. And if we're expecting it from him, can we also offer it to him? Can we offer it to each other? Can we be a little less hateful? Can we be kinder? Can we be less ethnocentric? Can we start to look at things from the prism of admitting that this country is the only one we've got, and to simply bring it crashing down is not in all our interests. 200 million people cannot japa. So if you survive and you japa, or you have more than one passport, I hope you know you have relatives who probably will never get one. And so that empathy, that connection, should cause us to come to the table and have conversations that are different from accusations.
All right, so just a quick one. I know that this is more like letting the cat out of the bag, so just a little bit into it. How does this film portray his struggles? You know, Wole Soyinka's political struggles and personal struggles.
Well, I think if you watch the film, and I hope you're going to watch the film, I should not actually...
That's why I said a little bit.
Someone doing as well as you are should pay me, even for the little bit.
Well, I have seen... Oh, you never can tell. The film is actually on Prime Video.
Well, I didn't bring my POS, but
so the movie... So now I'm actually giving...
Next time, I'll bring my POS.
But I have... What about if I have streamed the movie already? Would you pay me for that? Because I know the movie is on Prime Video.
Messi, we don't have time. Let him answer the question.
But go ahead, I'm sorry. Just a little bit.
I think for every revolutionary, every change maker, there's always a price to be paid. It's clear from the story. If you've read The Man Died, you'd know. It dislocated his career entirely. He was a university lecturer who was doing very well, traveling the world, giving conference speeches, and to have that suddenly, to have his movement restricted, his freedom. When we were doing the research and I saw the measurements of what the regular solitary confinement cells were, you have to say, how long can I survive in this place with nothing? They took away from him that which was most important to him, which is
his pen and
his pen and his typewriter. But beyond that, how could his family not have been impacted? I mean, to imagine those secondary impact of his young family, his children, not seeing their father for 2 years. All of this, I believe, is a cost and a price that we can't just wave away. And I think it's important not just for him, because he's 90 now. He's survived a heck of a lot more. And I'm not sure we're going to have him for another 90 years.
No.
But I hope it signposts for those of us who are keen to lead, for those of us who are serious about changing Nigeria, to also be prepared that there is a cost. Leadership is, especially in the political arena, is never given. It's taken. And it's not about the things you're saying. It's about what you're doing and the price you're willing to pay.
I think the bigger question is, nobody wants to die, but everybody wants to go to heaven. So who's going to bell the cat?
Well, I think there are many people out there who really feel strongly about this nation. Men and women of goodwill. I think we often underestimate ourselves. We're a country of incredibly diverse skills, talents, thinking, intelligence. Across the nation, there are amazing people in different spheres. They're in fintech, they're in journalism, they're in television. The conversation we're having today, you guys are already change makers. Because guess what? You chose this film to be able to actually have this conversation. And I think as long as we keep having those important, difficult conversations about nation building and stop shying away from those parts of our history that, we don't want to talk about,
so good.
or that we have created a narrative that's comfortable. I think for us to move forward as a country, we need those conversations.
So quickly, why? Because I hear that Professor Soyinka chose Wole Ojo specifically. I love him, by the way, because I think he's a fantastic actor. I watched his movie, Breath of Life. Amazing work. And, you know, I said, who else? Because he's the only one that has the look, the hairstyle, exactly everything.
Like well, I think he's more than
how much work was put into the cast and the crew? And quickly, so that we just quickly wrap
I
up.
think Wole Ojo is an amazing actor. And has nothing to do with whether he looks like or he doesn't. Of course he looks like Prof, but I don't think anyone quite looks like Prof in terms of duplicating him. Yeah. So I do feel that Wole's work in this has to be celebrated, has to be commended. He did a lot of research. He read all of Prof's books, poetry, just to get a sense of where Prof is coming from, and that can be a headache in of itself. So, but to support him with the people that we have, I think was really the success. I think, you know, Sam Dede did an amazing job. Robert Young, Semisola, San, Segilola. There's just so many amazing Nigerian actors that you may not see on the marquee every day, but they're doing the real work.
And it's going into the cinemas, right?
Now I want to see it.
By the grace of God,
awesome.
we will.
I'm going to see it, definitely. We are going to do like a movie night out. So quickly take the... We'll go and watch now.
No, me, I already see it on that quickly. Video.
You've seen it already?
You're late.
Quick.
Good evening. So we have this message. It says, good evening, my dear beautiful sisters of What Are You Saying? #ways. The impact of Wole Soyinka on Nigeria's history. The name Wole Soyinka cannot be ignored in any way because he has affected lives positively. The fact that he stood for justice alone cannot be ignored. And why can't we have someone like this as a president? It is so sad, disgraceful and embarrassing to even hear that the late Sani Abacha wanted him dead. Great men like this don't just die like that, but they must live to affect the lives of the youths so that when he's gone, his legacies will live long and not die. The question is, who can deny this great elder statesman his respect? We must always give honor to whom honor is due. God bless you, beautiful ladies in the studio. My name is Daniel Elohor.
Hello, where's Regular Fan? Thank you so much. But thank you. So it's out in the cinemas when?
We will announce.
Okay. I thought you were going to do the breaking news here.
No, but
we look forward to watching the film. I look forward to watching the film. Thank you so much, Femi Odugbemi, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. See you tomorrow. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you missed our quotes, I know they'll flash you somewhere. The man dies in all who keep silent in the face of tyranny. That was from Professor Wole Soyinka. See you guys. Wahala.